Hi, you're listening to Playing Out from the Bar. Please be aware this podcast contains strong language.
Right, can I go now?
Yeah, not bad, cheers. Not bad.
But refresh the clean feed, Trice.
No.
Hello everyone, welcome back. We're here again on Playing Out from the Bar. Episode 9 tonight. As you know, because you've clicked on it by now, we're talking about football icons. It always annoys me when podcasts with like guests on try to act like it's a surprise for the first few minutes when you've already seen. So that's why, because you know that because you're listening, which is why I always go to the topic first. So no danger of that here. But anyway,
and no guest.
Yeah, and no guest as well. that helps as well. But it's
It's
really
also episode 10.
Is it episode 10, Trice?
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah,
just-
I've even written it down. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh god, I'll have to edit that out. Actually, no. You know what? That's staying in. I like the mistake staying in. It proves we're real here. Yeah. No danger of that. I just had to get it off my chest that when other podcasts do that, it really annoys me. Anyway, you've already heard them, but let me first welcome Dobby and Tricey to the bar. How are we, lads? And Dobby, I'll come to you first. What are we drinking this evening?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Jack. And I'm actually on, this evening, the Northern Monk Faith that Tricey was drinking last week and that he mentioned.
Nice.
So yeah, we actually got him some of these to celebrate the birth of his second child, and I've not had. I have had one. I've had a couple of pints of it before actually, but off the top of my head, I couldn't really remember what it was like. So I passed some in the shop, and I thought, yeah, I'll get some of them for tonight. So far so good,
Go
Trice.
down well. Tricey's
Yeah,
recommendations
they're
doing the
quite
job.
nice actually. Yeah, like them.
That should be a referral. Shouldn't it? A kickback.
Yeah, it should be.
This is all
5.4%. That's pretty good going. A couple of these.
It's all part of the scheme just to get more advertising on this podcast. Open for 1 week that they get in touch with us. We've had 2 of the 3 of us now drink them, so can't be far away.
I quite like the can of this as well. And if you've had a chance to examine that, it's got like a bit of a
I can't see it.
Yorkshire. I don't know how to
Oh yeah.
explain it. Angel of the North on there. Like rolling hills, viaduct. Very northern.
Just all general landmarks of the north, really.
Pretty much, yeah.
Tricey, I'll come to you next. What are you drinking, mate?
Yeah, I'm also on the Northern Monk, but this time I'm on Heaven, which is slightly stronger. I've had it before, 7.2%, so it's a bit more of a
Yes.
heavier sitting one. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Nice. I'm on the wine tonight. I've gone for a Sauvignon
Nice.
Blanc. I feel that Dobby's kind of made it. Well, it was acceptable anyway, I suppose, to order the wine from the virtual bar, but I've gone for it tonight. It's called Bruce Jack.
Nice.
Bruce Jack. It sounds American, that name to me, but it's actually South African. But yeah, very nice.
Started a bit of a trend here. Wine club now.
Like you say, it's becoming less of a pub podcast and more of a bistro podcast.
Yeah. If we could have done a Christmas do this year, I'd have took you as wine tasting.
It's definitely on the itinerary for next year, mate. I'd love that. Then maybe a trip to the Pale Ale as well afterwards. Have we got any positives or negatives to share with the group this week, boys?
Yeah, I think positive. Just it doesn't seem that long ago I was mentioning this is a negative because it was late last week. But the Christmas present
Oh yeah, give
difficulties.
us an update on that. Yeah.
We're making some progression on that front. So first significant present in the bag, feeling good. Got some momentum now. Like big stress off my shoulders. Couple of weeks to go. Yeah, it's going well. So turned the negative into a positive. So I'm happy with that. Negative for the week. I don't know. Like just the same repetition, I guess, of life at the minute. But I guess a negative for myself today was like restrictions being lifted on the 2nd, which we're recording on, and going into tier 3, which meant the gyms reopened, and I booked myself in at the gym on our like site where we live today to go straight after work at 5 p.m. and I didn't go. So I think like just I probably should have done. Like I've got not a lot else to do. I went to Morrison's instead. Like, I've had a month and I was thinking, yeah, when it opens, like I should really make the most of it. We're pretty convenient. We've got one like here to use.
You got one on site. That was unbelievable. And you've wasted that slot, and you're only upstairs.
I know. I've only got to get in a lift. It's literally like down fast flights. You got to book slots at the minutes because they're obviously managing how many people are in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously that's still not. We're literally pre-booked and still didn't make it. So I'm gonna book for tomorrow and I'm gonna go. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I've got nothing else to do, so I don't know why I didn't go.
I mean, I've kind of lost track if this is a negative or a positive, because it's in some ways it's positive that if you're planning to go, that's positive. But then I suppose you didn't turn up, so. But yeah, no, that's good. Good to hear you making progress on that front. Anyway, Tracy, what about yourself?
Well, good news. I think it's fair to talk about the vaccine. That's positive and filled me with a bit of confidence that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was going to say that myself, but you've beat me to it. But go on, continue.
And sort of negative, really, I guess. But like the weekends at the minute, I'm spending loads of time with like Jess and the two boys, and then by the time Monday comes around, I'm getting like really bad Monday blues, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know where you just sat there like questioning like what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like,
Joy am I noticing 10 p.m. Sunday night.
Yeah, and it seems like because we're going for like nice walks and stuff at the weekend. You can't really do a lot more, but then every Monday I'm just like oh, come on,
Yeah.
It's nearly Friday. And I'm just sort of ready for that to end, really, I guess, and just mix it up a bit more. I guess I think the sort of working from home is great, but it's not been it's quite a busy time for my work anyway, so maybe that's what it is. I think it's just sort of getting on top of me a little bit.
I don't know about you, Travis, but I feel as well that when like the days are shorter, that has an impact, because then you if you're working from home,
the dark nights,
you're not going to get out, get much fresh air. It makes a difference in the week.
You've got to literally force yourself at lunch to just get outside and like see a bit of sunlight or something,
true,
or just a little bit of light. Otherwise, you kind of at risk of just spending the whole day like without leaving your house and not seeing any sunlight, which I guess wouldn't be too much different in normal circumstances, because you literally drive to work and sit at work and then drive home. But I mean, like just pivoting around your front room is just even kind of worse than that, isn't it? So
yeah, even if it's just that bit of like fresh air when you're stepping out to your car, I think it makes all the difference. Shall I go with my positives and negatives?
Yeah, let's hear 'em.
Go for it.
I mean, I don't know why I'm building them up so much. Then there's not really a lot to say. Still in lockdown. Well, my negative will be. I mean, again, this means nothing in an audio format, so I'm not sure why I'm bringing it up. But as Dobby and Tracy will be able to see, I'm wearing my glasses at the moment rather than my contact lenses. I'm hampered with a small niggle in my left eye, which has given me quite a lot of jip at the moment. So yeah, I've had a bit of an issue with that. I think a contact lens has got wedged in or something, and it's pretty painful. I don't know if either of you two had noticed that I was wearing glasses, but yeah. Anyway,
I did.
Suits you, man. It does suit you.
I didn't want to fish for compliments. I actually don't like wearing them. I hate wearing them. That's why it's my negative for the week, really. But yeah, that's my issue.
Just before you move on from that, like, I think my positive might be, like, I've just realised in life is not having to wear contact lenses, because I've seen quite a few people, like Tracy, Alfred Christian, like, growing up with him. How many times you just see him, like, battling with contact lenses, like, just chucking his head all over the place and having to, like, losing them, putting them in. Like, I just think, God, I'm glad that's a hassle that I don't have in my life, actually.
I can confirm it is an absolute, like, constant faff, a daily struggle just to get them in. And well, it's taking them out's easy, but then I say that and I've managed to do some damage to my left eye at the moment. So yeah. So again, like, it'll mean nothing to listeners in an audio format, but I thought it was worth mentioning. And actually, Tracy, you've already mentioned my positive, really, which was going to be the vaccination news. Soon we'll all be reunited potentially in a few months. And I just think some people just seem like they would rather want to moan about it than find the positives in it. I feel like some people have just got themselves in that mindset now where they just can't see the good in anything. But I think, fuck that, because getting out of this will be, the sooner we're out of this, the better, and hopefully it's on the way. Oh, and
It's been going on that long now. Like, I completely agree, and it's brilliant news. But then, like, been going on that long. I'm almost like thinking, like, fucking hell, it's gonna be so weird now. Like, I've almost forgotten what normality is. I'm sure after you do just like fit back into things within after a weekend almost. Like, one weekend will go by, and then that's it. Normality's back. But at this moment in time, just thinking ahead of like certain situations.
Yeah, that is true.
God, as if that could be a thing again in May. April.
On that note, Dobby, I was wondering, do you think the first time people go out in a nightclub situation that it'll be like a school disco and everyone will just be stood around the edge of the dance floor because everyone's forgotten what to do. No one wants to make the first move. So everyone will just be stood there at a weird distance.
I think as well, one thing that I've like, I'm sure you guys will agree, one thing that we missed actually, even when you could go in pubs during lockdown, was like actually going in and standing at the bar or queuing for the bar. I don't know why, it's just such like a pivotal part of going out, but yeah, you used to moan about it so much. But I'm sure when it gets reintroduced and I'm stood queuing at the bar and I can see someone who's literally just like crept in and got served ahead of me, I'll be like, fucking hell, get table service back in, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not looking forward to leaving table service. Is one of the few positives of the whole pandemic, really, for me this year. In the summer, it was good. Yeah.
I like just standing around and like queuing for a bar. Not queuing, but like this is the hassle of trying to get to the bar.
The chat with the bar staff as well. That's sorely missed. Actually, I did have one other positive this week, which was a very small positive by comparison with the vaccination news. But I thought you two would appreciate it. I've got a really good Rangers career mode on the go on FIFA 21. Right. I chose Rangers partly because we talked about it in the group chat, and Tracy said, you can't start in the Premier League, which I thought fair enough. But I like the idea of a challenge of getting Rangers back into the Champions League, and also an added bonus, I'm able to belt out Simply the Best on my Bluetooth speaker before every home game, because I don't know if you two knew this, but that's what Rangers run out to at Ibrox. So it's just a good excuse to play Simply the Best by Tina Turner. What's not to like? But yeah,
is Ibrox on FIFA yet?
No, it's. No. Technically, I'm still at East Point Arena, but in my mind, I'm at Ibrox. There's no doubt about that.
Jack, I've actually got some insight into a Rangers career, but we haven't got enough time in the day.
That's a whole other episode in itself.
To summarise, Rangers became a European force. Just now, let's talk football icons.
I remember hearing about that. That was like some career mode, actually.
So yeah, sorry about that. I just I'm looking forward to diving into that at some point, Trace. I just felt tonight, like, in the words of Alan Partridge, I wanted two positives: one to cancel out the negative, and the other because I just want a positive.
The positive, yeah.
We're talking this week about our footballing idols on Playing Out from the Bar. This is, of course, after the death last week of the great Diego Maradona. For me, the greatest footballer to ever walk the planet, probably. And it was a bit of even though he was obviously not in the best state health-wise, it was still quite a shocking piece of news to receive. And even in the midst of 2020 and everything else that this year's brought, I was quite surprised by it, really. So I guess this episode is our own small tribute to him, really, in some ways, and it's inspired the topic for this week. Boys, what did you make of the passing of Diego?
Yeah, I actually thought it hit me quite hard, actually, and whether you like him or not as a character, you can't help but deny that he's not an idol or an icon of the sport. It sort of felt like, I don't want to do this disservice, but like the end of an era, really. Like, it felt like your dad's generation's best player was no longer with us. Do you know what I mean? It felt like it cut away so many conversations. I think just having like, oh, tell me about what Maradona was like, and do you know what I mean? I think that now that's gone. I think that's quite sad for the footballing world, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he had that. It wasn't just the fact that he was the best player in the world. It was like he was the best character in football for so long. Like in a similar way to like when Brian Clough died and George Best. It's like there's no one else even remotely like him. Like there's no one comes close as a character first and foremost. And like you say, Trice, I think that impact on our, like, probably the two generations above us, really, but that he'd be up there for them. He'd be up there for anyone. I think anyone who really watches football would have him there as one of the greatest, without doubt.
Yeah, I think it's weird, isn't it? Because for the last 5 to 10 years, whenever you've seen him in the media or in the public, he was usually making like a bit of a scene in some way, and it was related to like maybe alcohol, drugs, or just up to something just a bit mischievous, and it was just comical, and you enjoyed that, and you enjoyed seeing that, and you just like absorbed it, and you thought, look at this all-time great, and look at kind of what he's doing. But like that was sad that he kind of had that's how it's been for the latter stages of his life. But I mean, yeah, I think it just, for me, it's like I probably didn't spend enough time over the last 10 years actually reflecting on how good of a footballer he was, because everything that I was seeing was more to do with his like personal life decisions in that time. And I think it was just actually when lockdown started and we was away for a weekend and put on the TV, and when COVID started, and there was a documentary on, I think it was the Channel 4, the Maradona one.
The film, yeah.
Yeah, and I sat down, and that was the first time I'd seen it, and at that point I did just realise, like, it just made me remember just how unbelievable this footballer was, and how single-handedly how he changed fortunes for his national team and for Napoli, and just also just what a character he was. And it just made me realise, like, yeah, this guy isn't what we've just been seeing over the last 5 or 10 years, and what I'm just absorbing in the news whenever it comes up. This is actually the status, and this is mental, really, that someone was capable of that and is like just absolutely idolised in that way. And I thought it was just madness. And yeah, I think for so long I was one of them people who, yeah, it just passed me by sometimes. So, but no, it's really sad, and I think, like you say, Trice, I think that's a really accurate thing to say. Just, it's a generation's best footballer gone, isn't it? Really, and yeah, it's a strange thought.
We have to, like, I mean, that documentary for me is just a phenomenal piece of film. Like, weirdly, it's the only film where I've ever gone to the cinema to watch it just on my own, just because I knew that I wanted to watch it. It's obviously quite an indie film. It's not like, it was on. I went to it at the Tyneside Cinema, which is obviously an independent cinema, and it's like an old school cinema. It wasn't like a mainstream hit that you could go and see with lots of like mates.
Couldn't go down your local View.
Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't
like movies.
It wasn't like I was texting a group chat saying, "Let's all go down the View to watch this." Like, and it was only shown that I think twice that day or something. But anyway, I went to see it on my own. And it was just like honestly, and even on TV, it didn't do it justice. Is the opening scene alone, where it's like a car chase through Naples on the way to his unveiling in the cinema? It was just like, fuck it, it was unbelievable. It was so good, and like, I don't think, in terms of him as a footballer, I don't think it can ever be underestimated how the best player in the world, signs for a club who've never won their domestic league before, and he becomes, it's like they were one of the poorest cities in Italy at the time, and they signed the best player in the world, and like, he wins them 2 league titles in the next 4 years. It's just virtually carrying the team on his own, basically. I mean, just incredible, and some of the footage that is shown in that film is just amazing. So he's got to be up there as one of the great football icons. There's no doubt.
I find when I watch.
Go on, Dar. Sorry.
Sorry, Trice. I was going to say, one of the things that I find quite sad, and I found it the same with the George Best documentary as well, when I watch them programs, and you just see how like idolised these people are, but because of the generation that they were a part of and the time, I don't think anybody, them and the people around them didn't really know how to manage that and protect them. So it's just sad that, like, I think you look at Messi and Ronaldo today, and I mean, them guys are just so well, like, just so well managed in this situation, and them kind of players just didn't have that luxury and were very vulnerable. And yeah, it must have been really tough as as people, especially when you look at Maradona and probably some of the, I guess, some of the people that we'd been surrounded with while at Napoli as well, and people who had an interest in him, and trying to influence him. That must have been, I don't know how you'd cope with that, but in this day and age, it just wouldn't be a thing. So I think that's quite sad as well about it.
Yeah,
that was going to be my point. That Dobby, like, he's probably the last. I agree with what you're saying, but on his documentary, like, he doesn't have any regrets about that lifestyle choice he led. Like,
right.
He sort of gives insight into the fact that he was living it absolutely up to the max, like partying until 2 a.m. and then going out and playing and being the best player in the world. Like, and he was absolutely loving it. But what I think, I think he's probably the last player who's going to die, and you think that he had a real personality. Like, the ones after now, like you just touched on, they're all going to be airbrushed. They're all going to be, through no fault of their own, managed by agents and stuff like that, where we don't really get the raw person. We don't see what they're actually like as a human. We only see how good they are at football for 90 minutes.
I mean,
if that makes sense.
Messi and Ronaldo, to touch on that point you made, David, they're so well managed these days that they can avoid, like, tax evading scandals, and, like, no one really bats an eyelid. That's how well managed they are off the pitch. But if something went wrong, I mean, like, Maradona was in there with the Naples mafia. It's just it's unbelievable when you look back on it, how he was even able to get on the pitch on a Sunday. And he actually talked about it, didn't he? He said he'd play on a Sunday, go out and just absolutely tear up the night, Sunday to Tuesday night, and then on Wednesday he'd start the cleansing process to get his body right again for a game the following week. It's just like, fucking hell. Even back then, when the game was perhaps a little bit slower, you're still like, how can you do that? It's just ridiculous. So yeah, he's just, I mean, it's hard to sort of say what hasn't already been said about Maradona in some ways, especially over the past week. But he had to start any conversation about football icons for me, I think. Is there anyone else that you both feel we should be talking about, perhaps from the previous eras rather than the modern era?
I think Dobby already touched on him there. What I did before the start of this episode is I text my dad, because I think sometimes it's a good insight to see generational, like, icons. Like, I have no recollection of what Maradona was like, and I have no recollection of what George Best was like. How could we? But I think it's good to get an insight from generation to generation. I said to my dad, if I said to you, name a football icon, the first three players come to your head, and he went Pele, Maradona, George Best as, like, his three. And I think, like, the George Best one is such an... I know we've mentioned Pele previously on this podcast and whatever about his goals record and stuff like that, but George Best, like a young lad from Belfast moving over to Manchester and just becoming one of the world's greatest players, is just... And he had all the off-field antics as well, obviously, but still that raw personality every week, and the showboating and taking his sock off and stuff like that in games. Like, you'd never see that now, would you?
No, yeah. He was a superstar, really, wasn't he? But the journey's like the crazy parts of them kind of players, where you see where they started and what road they took. And like you say, him coming from Belfast, and I think we touched on it in a previous episode, where he's, like, living in, like, shared accommodation. I think someone puts him up in, like, a room.
Yeah, he was in digs, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He nearly left after, like, 2 weeks. Him and his mate tried to do a runner back to Belfast. That's how homesick he was. Like, I mean, you just think, what if? Like,
yeah,
completely.
But I think I think I agree with you, Trice, on that completely. Like, for me personally, yeah, it's only footage that I've caught on videos and or, like, gone out my way to find myself. But my stepdad is a big Manchester United fan, and I remember about 10 years ago, there was this random poster that was, or photo that got put up in the house somewhere in like his study, in his man cave, that was of George Best. And yeah, I mean, if you sit down and ask him about him, as a Man United fan and as a kid, that was the person you went to the Old Trafford for, who you literally was, that was your idol. And it was just an idol. It was just a superstar. And if people at that age to just reminisce and hold him in that kind of esteem, and like you say, feel the need to still put up like photos in their man cave and stuff. It was just an old battered poster almost that you could tell he'd had for 20-30 years. But yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to hear, I think, what the older generation say about them, about that generation.
I just, sorry, briefly going back to Maradona, only because I was reminded of this quote recently and I forgot to put it in. I think it was Tim Vickery, the South American football journalist, who came up with it, but it said like the only two countries in the world that don't agree that he was the best of all time is England, obviously, because of what happened in '86, and Brazil, because they've got Pele. But he said up until like 2010, maybe Portugal have slightly wavered a bit in the past few years, but he's like, every other country on earth agreed he was the greatest of all time.
Another one for me that popped out, and less so because of like personality, and I think the superstar, kind of the superstar stature that they held him, but I think more from a tactical influence and the influence they had on their nation, and also putting that from playing into managerial, was Johan Cruyff. Yeah, I mean, admittedly, again, my experience actually watching Cruyff is very limited. Even experiences like managerial reign at Barcelona, again, didn't get to see that firsthand. But just hearing about the style of play that he was playing under in the Dutch league and to the Dutch national team, and then how he was so pivotal to that, and how that was like really inspiring in football, this total football like tactic, and then also how he then transitioned that at Barcelona and then made a success of it there as well. I think he was obviously a great player, a great tactician, and understood the game, and then was also able to then take that over to management. And I think as a British person, I don't think a lot of people would just crop up and say him off the top of the head. I think, if in all honesty, would you? I don't think he holds like the same kind of like stature as your Maradonas. Well, in a way he does, but I think it's more the people who are really interested in football and maybe like in the tactics around football. But yeah, I thought he was one worth to bring to the table and just gauge your guys' ideas on him as well.
What I like about things like that, Dobby, is when you see like the graphics of the managers that have come underneath him, if that makes sense, from his from his team time as a manager, the players that have then become managers. Like you see it a lot with Sir Alex and like the Johan Cruyff ones, and it's like it's just a web across like European football of the players who's influenced and like the style of play is influenced and stuff like that. And yeah, I think when you've got someone like that, it has a knock-on effect to. Like you could argue that without Johan Cruyff, you wouldn't have Pep Guardiola's philosophy of play. Without Pep Guardiola's philosophy of play, would teams in League Two be trying to play out in this country? Like, no, they wouldn't. I think so, but it impacts so much when you get an icon like that across the world.
Yeah,
like the European styles as they've like come together over the past 40 years, footballing philosophies have come together. Cruyff has basically won out, hasn't it? Like you say, Trish, like you've got lower league English clubs playing the sort of believing in possession and playing through the thirds. That's it. Can all be traced back to Cruyff and beyond him, Michaels as well. It's like it's just to bring that alone. It means that not only as a player, but I think as an overall football philosopher, Cruyff's probably hard to beat actually.
Yeah. I did hear, and I didn't realise this, but he retired from international football after less than 50 games, 48 games, ahead of the 1978 Argentina World Cup, because came out later that his family, there'd been a kidnap attempt on his family, so essentially that was enough for him to give it up, which I didn't know that. That's an
God,
interesting fact.
I didn't know that either, Dobby.
Yeah, because 48 games, I was like, that's not a lot. And then
No.
read into it, and I don't know, international level, to be fair, you know, I mean...
Because I often think that some international players from that era have less caps just because there were fewer games, but that's obviously not the case with him. I've never noticed that before. That's quite interesting. So the reason I started laughing slightly there when Dobby said, do any English, it's not often a name you hear from an English person, is Johan Cruyff as the greatest player of all time. The only reason that made me laugh was because my mind jumped back to a brilliant review on the When Saturday Comes, the fanzine. It's got to be 15 years old now, this review, but it still makes me laugh. It's so funny. It's basically a review of Tim Lovejoy's terrible book on football, which is called Lovejoy on Football. They describe it as part autobiography, part witless musing, and one more triumph for crass stupidity. And the only reason the Cruyff mention made me laugh, to come full circle, is that in the book, one of Lovejoy's major gaffes is that he names Johan Cruyff as his all-time favourite player, then admits he's only seen that 5-second clip of the Cruyff turn. Which I just had to mention because that just explained why I started laughing there when Dobby was talking about Cruyff at the start.
Oh, God.
But yeah, you were still wanting to mention. I mean, how high is he ranking for you, just based on like, you know, what the clips you've seen or what you've read and researched about?
It's a pretty good Cruyff turn. I'm gonna put it. Yeah, you might go to number one because of that.
Basically, Dobby, are you rating him as highly as Tim Lovejoy? If you had to write a book on football, would he be your greatest player of all time?
I love how it's been just gone off the back of a Cruyff turn, which fair enough.
Also, I like it how he says that he's his favourite player first, and then goes on to admit that he's only seen the clip of the Cruyff turn.
Maybe you watched it repeatedly.
Yeah. It's a toss-up between that and the Maradona turn, and he preferred Cruyff turn, so he's gone with Cruyff. That's how he's decided on his favourite footballer. But I think it's a tough one because, in all honesty, I don't know too much about him as a footballer, and all I really know about it, most of what I've kind of heard about him is from reading and hearing about the influence that he's had on other people in the game, and like the eras that he was involved in and the teams that he was involved in, either managing or playing. So I'm not quite sure where, if I was to put a ranking together, where I'd actually put him. But I think he's definitely someone who springs to mind as being like an icon in the game, just because of that. And I think that'll continue for a long time as well. I can't see that. I think his like influence will remain in the game for a long time. Like people will go on to be watching football that they probably don't directly realise is related to him himself, but it actually is. Do you know what I mean? If you don't, so I think for that reason, he ranks really highly of me. And I guess just before we move off Cruyff, maybe some people are interested to hear just really what his kind of like philosophy is, or really what the total football style that he implemented really was. So, Jack, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this, or if you think you could give a good explanation behind it.
I mean, at a simple level, very basic level, you would say that, like, the theory of total football essentially is that all of the 10 outfield players, not the goalkeeper, but the 10 outfielders, all interchange and are so fluidly sort of switched on that they're able to just move into position, whichever position is required at the time, dependent on where the ball is. So, in theory, a right back would be able to pop up front, or vice versa, if the situation depended on it, sort of thing. And that's kind of what Ajax and like the '74 Dutch team kind of really were. That's how they honed that was their tactical blueprint, basically. And I mean, that Ajax team, I think, let me get this right, I think they won 3 European Cups in the space of 4
Yeah.
years, or potentially, or was it 2 in the space of
It
3?
was 3, I think.
Yeah, and they had a perfect home record for 2 seasons in a row. So they were real innovators, and other teams before them in the 50s and 60s had played total football, previous to, or a version of it similar to them. But I think like Michaels, who sort of passed on the theory to Cruyff, it's sort of and then Cruyff kind of has obviously passed it on to Pep Guardiola, and it's kind of it's that. So there's like a clear lineage, which with their version of what you call total football. So that's probably why it's like famous around Europe now.
Yeah. So he was such a pivotal part within that total football. Within
system.
that when he was within that system as a player, and then obviously taking that onto management as well and adapting it as he went along.
And I think he developed it when he went on to management. I mean, like he probably wouldn't, like him the player. He probably wouldn't have a position. It'd be quite hard to define a position for him, particularly in the modern game. I'm not sure where he'd fit in really. Like, I mean, obviously he was so good that he could probably play anywhere. But same with Maradona as well. Really, I mean, I think like the traditional number 10 has kind of not died out, but like so much about.
You know what the number
wingers
10
and
is now
pace
for a lot of people? The number 10 is a winger that doesn't want to run but likes to shoot, so just plays off the striker.
That's so true. Yeah,
you're not going to get that in your FA coaching badges, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and even like people call Jack Grealish a number 10, but for me, even he like picks up the ball quite deep positions. I mean, I'm in no way comparing Jack Grealish to bloody Maradona and Johan Cruyff, but I'm just like the positions they picked up the ball in were quite high up the pitch, but yet they were still creators rather than goals, pure out and out goal scorers. Like, I mean, Maradona's best contribution in the '86 World Cup, where he basically carried a terrible Argentina team to the trophy. In the final, his biggest contribution is the setting up the winning goal from a one-touch pass in midfield, where basically everyone's marking him in midfield, so he just plays a through ball and releases the striker to go through on a one-on-one and score. It's quite a weird way to win a World Cup. You probably wouldn't see that nowadays. But yeah, no, but in summary, Doug, I think you're completely spot on, because we had to definitely couldn't have an Icons episode without mentioning Cruyff, and also not even a football inside of it, but do you not think just in terms of how stylish he looked as a player, like that's definitely part of being an icon, I would say. Like all these players we've talked about so far, like Maradona, Best, Cruyff, they all just looked like iconic footballers, even before you even talk about the ability, really.
Yeah, true. Not like Lee Griffiths at Celtic.
Well, each to own. Maybe he's doing something for a certain demographic of like Adidas wearing Celtic fans. I don't know. Have we got anyone else that we want to make? Or should we now move forward towards sort of more a modern era iconic players? I guess like players from our.
Just before we go into.
Oh, sorry, go on, Troy.
Just before we go into the 21st century, I just want to mention someone who I did a bit of research on from like this is even generation after like our dads really, and that's Puskas, for the goals named after, the awards named after.
Yeah.
He in like the 50s, that Hungarian team was meant to revolutionise football. Like they sort of completely changed the game at the time, and like it's weird how like history remember, like there's probably not many people around old enough to know what he was like as a player, but I think that's something that I'd like to find out more about, is that team of the 50s that, because I think they beat England 6-0 or something like that at the time, and that was like a squad of the pre-66 players breaking through.
They turned up at Wembley when England had like never lost at Wembley, I think, or had only lost once there in like 50 years or something, and Hungary just absolutely battered them.
It's quite interesting as well, because like if you ever watch Football's Greatest, like obviously Maradona and Cruyff feature heavily, but there's that Hungarian team feature on one of them, and I think they were broken up by like conflict or something in the late 50s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it ended up never been like the team that it was meant to be, like through war. So they all became refugees. I think Puskas even became a player for Spain, I think, later on. So it was.
They should have really won the 54 World Cup. They were absolutely like overwhelming favourites, but West Germany beat them in the final. I don't think anyone still knows to this day how it actually happened, because like they was probably as big a favourites for a World Cup as any team's ever been, and like precisely Trice because of Puskás predominantly, but they had a great team a lot outside of him as well. But they like that was, I think that was probably the biggest shock in any World Cup final, possibly. So yeah, they were a great team, and yeah, that's definitely one worth mentioning for future. Perhaps doing even more research on in the future.
So moving into the 21st century and looking at some more modern names in our lifetime, the one that springs to mind first for me, and I think you can't talk icons really without mentioning him anywhere in the world, to be fair, and that's got to be David Beckham, hasn't it? I think from actual footballing ability wise, from his commercial success, from like being almost like an idol in like a fashion sense as a child, like I think in the 2000s, that is what an icon, like he basically defines what an icon was, just the complete package of when footballers became these trendy, well paid, very commercially successful people. And Beckham kind of had the full package. I mean, at Manchester United, I think did he win 6? I think it was like 6 Premier Leagues. He had the Champions League as well. Probably had a few FA Cups in there. So as a player, obviously, plenty of silverware against his name. Going out with pop star, which is again in this. Yeah, I mean, but we're talking 2000 footballers now, and not just footballing reasons. I think icons developed at that point to being. For a lot of reasons, and also looking at his commercial success, having the Predator boots. Growing up, I know you guys will definitely have owned a pair of Predators at some point, or if you didn't, you definitely would have wanted to. Yeah. I'm sure I know I definitely had a Mohican at one point when David Beckham was rocking a Mohican. I even at one point when I've got a funny story. So when he had you remember that time when he had the Mohican? It was just like, it was bald, but then he had just down the middle, like the hair. Yeah. So it was bald either side, and had the hair down the middle. Well, I said to my mum, I want it. Like that's
this is like pre-2002 World Cup time, isn't it? It's like peak Beckham mania at this point.
Yeah. So I wanted it. I wanted 0 either side, and I wanted the bit of hair down the middle. And my mum was like, right, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll do it for you. So she sits, I remember her in the dining room, she sits you down, she goes to do it. She does it wonky. So I've just got this wonky, like, Mohican down the middle of my head. So it ended up all having to go off. So I had a bald head, and then I had to go get a passport photo done. So I had a passport for, like, however many years. It's just this kid with a bald head.
From Beckham to Danny Mills in seconds.
Yeah. I was like, just took it to the hairdressers. That'd have been about a £5 cut, that. I can't believe she wanted to do it herself. So yeah, when you've got kids doing that much, and I'm a Leeds fan, I'm not even like, I wasn't even genuinely that really invested in him as a player. Like I'd never really got out my way to think, I love David Beckham as a player, apart from he whips a good ball in and a good free kick, which I get, yeah, to be fair, in that sense, like everybody loved him for that, but to get that down on my head, that shows that he obviously had some kind of status in the game. And then even just like the random bits as well, like the video game that we mentioned on the other podcast, the David Beckham Soccer.
Yeah.
Bend It Like Beckham, the film.
I mean, that's just having a film named after you. That's mad enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
And,
so
sorry, go on.
Yeah. So no, I don't know what you guys think of that, but I just think that for our generation growing up, and really what football and the Premier League evolved into, and the global reach he had, I think Beckham's got to be an icon, hasn't he?
Yeah, I like it from that story about your haircut. How you was, even though you were a Leeds fan, you were still kind of paying tribute because Danny Mills was obviously at Leeds for that period, 2002 period, wasn't it? So you were covering the whole of the England right side of the squad. Yeah, that's brilliant. For me, like when we talk about when Beckham's name gets brought up, I almost kind of go, oh no, because I just not in like inner circles, but if you're having a wider football conversation, because there's bound to be someone in there that doesn't rate him or like thinks he's like just doesn't like him because of his celebrity. But for me, he was one of the most underrated England players in the past 20, 30 years. Like I think he's absolutely. He was just phenomenal, wasn't he? Like, you know, people forget how much bigger part of work rate was of his game, and like he just used to work so hard. Yes, he was a right winger, but you know, in a 4-4-2 more often than not. But it's just like he'd turn up he could be anywhere on the pitch because he'd worked that hard. He had such a good engine. I mean, his delivery on set pieces and like his crossing was the best in the world for a long time. Like, there's no doubt in that. A story I always liked about Beckham was when Jonathan Woodgate was at Real Madrid. Who we mentioned on the on our first episode, I think, and Jonathan Woodgate was sitting with Beckham on the plane. Real Madrid were going out to a pre-season tour, I believe, when Beckham got the text from the FA, from Steve McLaren, saying that he wouldn't be named in his first England squad. And Beckham hadn't retired at this point. He was just dropped by McLaren unceremoniously, and Beckham was like, "Oh, I've just been dropped." That's the text to tell me I've just been dropped. And Woodgate was like, "What? You've been serious? I can't." Woodgate was absolutely prepared. Like, he couldn't believe it. I was in shock, complete shock.
Stop the plane.
He was, but apparently within 20 seconds, David Beckham was saying to him, "Yeah, but I'll get back in though. I'll definitely get back in." Like, he had such and that's not because he was being arrogant. That was his drive. That was his work ethic. Like, he knew what he had to do to get back in. When Capello suddenly ditched him at Real Madrid when he was going to LA Galaxy, and he made him train with the kids, and like for the final run-in of the season, Real Madrid were going for the league, and Capello brought him back in from the cold to play like the last 10 games of the season because he'd been training so well, he'd been working so hard. Wow. I just think anyone who, it kind of like shows up a bad footballing opinion in general if someone doesn't rate Beckham, in my view.
Yeah.
What I love about it, and what I think all icons have, is they have the downside. So like, we celebrate the story, don't we, in this country? So like, Beckham in '98, like the pictures of him burning effigies of him and stuff like that on the Sun. I think we celebrate more the people who go to rock bottom and then come up out the other side. And you know, Maradona, Cruyff, they all have their sort of flaws. George Best. But we celebrate that story more because we like seeing him come through the other side of it, I think.
Yeah, it's like the sort of the
proper Roy of the Rovers type.
Yeah.
It's like the genius has to be like slightly imperfect, slightly unbalanced. They can't be like a machine. Can't be too perfect in a way.
That's true. Yeah. But sorry, I'll start again. I read an interesting thing earlier on him. I just trying to remember off the top of my head, but more about his commercial success. And this was actually when he was at Madrid, and I think when they signed him, within his 4-year contract that they gave him, he basically brought in $600 million of extra revenue from merchandise, which saw their profits rise by like 150 something %. I think that's so. It just, and like modern football has got to that point probably where there is. Like, you could argue that it's worth signing players just on the money that you're going to regain back through shirt sales and merchandise sales, and I think that there just shows a club like Real Madrid where their fans, I mean, we're just seeing what kind of reaction Gareth Bale's had over recent years. Like, they set the bar very high, and they are the elite, so you think no one's too big to go in there. But I think Beckham really did show that when he went to Madrid, he was still a superstar there, and it obviously reflects in the finances as well. So, yeah, I think it's just a full package really, and I think even to this day and age, like beyond his football career, he's just continued to develop himself as an individual and have an influence in different areas that just keeps him in that status of remaining like an icon in the game. And we'll see what goes on in the next 10 plus years. He's obviously got his football team now over in the States, and it doesn't show any signs really of losing that drive, I don't think. So I'm sure he'll go on to do some pretty crazy things over the next 20-30 years. at the end of the day, he's a very powerful man in football now, and I'm sure he'll do well from it.
Yeah, I think perhaps just because it's like, do you think the three of us were just obviously we're the same age? Were we just born at the right time for like true Beckham mania? Perhaps like he'll always be one of our favourite England players just because of the time we were born, and like he was obviously the talisman for our first World Cup in Japan and Korea, and like for the first 4 years. I remember being really upset when he announced that he was resigning as captain after the 2006 World Cup. I just that really upset me. It like shook me. It's sort of a bit of my childhood, I think, died that day.
Can you both remember if you watched the Greece goal live? Did you? Because I remember that still to this day, like seeing that, and that'll always stand out as one of the footballing moments, I think. And it's just iconic, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Can you two remember that?
Yeah, I can. And it overshadows because England were very average in that game, and like no one ever remembers that at all. Everyone talks about is just Beckham's unreal free kick. Yeah. I've actually seen a really good insight into his training routine of that, and it's like I think it maybe have been an Adidas advert at the time. And it was the day before he practices. It's bizarre. The same number of free kicks what he misses previously, he practices before, and then like the one he goes for the top, like left hand side, if you like,
he's in training corner.
Yeah. He masters it and he does it repetition, and then it just delivers in the game. It's just unreal. Like still to this day, what a feeling that was.
When they were filming sorry, it's a bit of a sidetrack, but when they were filming the Class of '92 documentary film, which is a brilliant film, I don't, if anyone's listening who hasn't seen it, definitely watch it. But in that, Beckham had to do like a scene at the Man United training ground where they hooked a tyre up in the top corner of the goal, like what you're saying, Charles, like his classic corner, top left, but they hung it up on the wrong side of the goal when he turned up. So initially he was shooting on his wrong side, and apparently the producer said like he still nearly hit it on his first go and on his second go, and then on his third he was like, because it took him like 2 games before he was polite, because he's so polite, he then eventually said, oh, do you mind putting it on the other side, because that's where I'd normally hit it, and then just got it in one take. So yeah, he's a master, there's no doubt about it.
Imagine being in his family. Like he's quite active, isn't he, on social media and stuff, and you just think, and obviously his kids are as well, and you just think, God, just imagine being like David Beckham's kid.
Well, did you know that they put Brooklyn had trials for Arsenal? Did you know that? And they put him through with a fake name.
Oh, really?
I didn't know they put him through with a fake name.
Yeah, but then obviously like David's gone like, look, you're pretty average, mate. Let's just focus on getting your Prada modelling contracts.
Yeah.
Those contracts, they don't just hand them out, lad.
One of them's like proper. Sorry for going off topic, but I can't remember which one of the boys it is. But he was going to be like, he's a big tennis like fanatic, isn't he? And I don't know how old he is. Yeah, he was. I feel like I've not seen him in a while, but early teens, and you think, God, like he loves
Romeo.
tennis.
Is it?
Yeah, and I think it could be. And he's playing a lot of tennis, and he's like, when I was that age, I did not have that like desire. Like I'm gonna be, I'm that invested in tennis, and I'm gonna become like really good at it. So, yeah, obviously runs in the blood.
Yeah. I mean, is a great shout for me as well. He's definitely an icon for me in terms of just, I think, like I say, just because of those peak early noughties years. If you're a football fan growing up in that era, you can't really not say he's had an impact on you, I don't think. Is there anyone else we'd like to mention, boys, in the bar tonight?
I'd like to throw in his teammate, if that's possible. So I know Messi, Ronaldo, probably debate for the best player ever, quite comfortably. But for me, when you say the best player ever, someone who can do everything, and that player is Zinedine Zidane for me. And he's an icon because he doesn't look like he should be as good as he is as well. He looks like he should be rocking up at Sunday league and just flying into tackles, but then he's actually the opposite. He's like this elegant artist, just playing at a different speed to everyone else, playing at a control. What if he wanted to go slow? The game was slow. If he wanted to go fast, the game was. And I think he had his flaws as well, didn't he, Zidane? So I think when you talk about like the complete player, I think that late 90s, early 2000 period of Zinedine Zidane in his prime was just something that I don't think you'd be able to replicate today, actually. What do you guys think on that?
Oh, yeah, for me, Travis, untouchable as just there's not really, again, it's a bit similar to Maradona, there's not really I can't really picture another player like him in terms of being that artistic as a playmaker and having such unbelievable technique, but then also being so tall and physically
aggressive,
powerful, and aggressive. It's kind of I always think it's he had kind of a poetic end going out headbutting another player because he was just a battering ram as well. He was so strong and just never got overawed by anyone on the pitch. That's what comes to mind with him. And yeah, he's another one. There's not really been another one like him since, and I don't know if there will be.
Yeah, he's one of them players, and I've got a few of these players who haven't played in the English league, and I hold him a really high bracket, and he's definitely one of them. Of where the idea of him even playing in the Premier League or getting to see him on a Premier League pitch just seems just impossible. It seems like just too much of a fantasy. He's this great player, and you see so much about him, and you hear so much about him, but then the idea, it's like Messi nowadays almost. It's just the idea of actually seeing him in the best league in the world, but up close and personal, and what surrounds your everyday life. It's just too good to be true. It just can't happen. And I always thought of Zidane like that. It's just this fantasy player who you just see so much of through the television, and obviously it's just so brilliant, but you'll just never get to see or experience him up close and personal and be a part of your everyday footballing life. So there's
that famous quote, isn't there, that's probably synonymous with Blackburn Rovers fans ever since, why do we need Zidane? We've got Tim Sherwood. As he nearly signed from in the mid-90s.
I love that. I tell you what, we could actually do a great episode on the footballers who have been linked to moves, to these random clubs.
The transfers that nearly happened.
Yeah, there's the Ronaldinho to, was it a team in Scotland? With Maradona's death recently, there's been a few come out about him. I think I know Leeds, there was an article in one of the Leeds local papers about his agent talking to Leeds and Sheffield United as well, I think. So he obviously had all these rogue links to making the move to the English leagues, but I bet there's just so many random ones out there that you could pull out.
That is a great idea actually for a future episode. Definitely need to do that. Do you think in any way it went against him, perhaps that he didn't play in the Premier League at some point, or do you not see that as so much of an issue?
No, I think he was too good for the Premier League at the time. I think the Premier League wasn't the force it was.
Yeah.
Today.
No, I agree. I think really
and we go on about the Premier League, but still, really, to this day, the elite don't play in the Premier League. The best players really. There's a few exceptions now, but the best players go to one of the big two clubs in Spain.
Yeah. Zidane played for that late 90s Juve team, and back then Serie A was probably the place to go as well. So, it can't be held against him. I still think, just fair enough for going out the way he did as well, because he was so good in that 2006 World Cup. His performance against Brazil, I'm sure most people have seen in the quarterfinals. There's possibly the greatest highlights package of any player ever. One of the great World Cup performances. Scored a penalty in the final. Had the audacity to do a Panenka in a World Cup final, which doesn't get talked about enough for me. Imagine having the bottle to do that, most watched game ever, and you're gonna do a fucking Panenka. You've got to have some bottle. He nearly missed as well. It hits the bar and nearly bounces back out. But he's definitely got to be up there for me as well. Trice, great
Yeah,
shout.
definitely. I'd agree with that. And what about you, Jack? You got any to chuck in the mix?
Yeah, I'll throw mine in quickly because I know we've still got a quiz to come, another quiz courtesy of our Quizmaster General, Trice. But I'll just quickly, because I couldn't not mention him, I'd be sort of doing myself a disservice if I didn't, which is original Ronaldo, or El Phenomenal, as he was often known. For me, he was like the first player I saw who just made me think, fucking hell, he's unbelievable. He's so different to anyone else I've seen on a football pitch. It's just like the way not just his finishing, but like I think people forget as well, before his injuries, how fast he was. Like in the late 90s, before his first serious injury, he was unbelievably quick with the ball. Just used to be able to move past people with ease. And like what we were talking about earlier, he had like the great triumphant return of the 2002 World Cup when he's missed the 98 final in slightly strange circumstances. Then 2002, he was just the man of that World Cup for me. I mean, I know there was Rivaldo and Beckham and Ronaldinho, so it wasn't a bad choice, but
You can always judge a player as well, as we learned tonight, on if they've had a video game made after them, and he does have a video game made after him. Ronaldo versus football, which as a title's a bit, can't really make sense of that.
no.
But yeah,
Is that
again,
him?
Jack,
Is that him taking on the entirety of
Yeah.
football?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But again, I've got my weird way of defining like elite players of like the early 2000s is like the ones who just you didn't see up close and personal in like England, but you were still just so obsessed about and just were still just quite on your mind as like great footballers. And Rivaldo, Zidane, they're probably like the three that just stick out in my mind. I'm pretty sure everybody's really, unless I'm sure Trice will chuck Maldini in there.
I would actually, yeah.
Yeah,
He'd be
so
up there as well, yeah.
yeah,
It's
but
like-
no, Ronaldo's got to be considered, hasn't he?
I think if you play for Barcelona, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, and AC Milan, all of that era, you're pretty special. And I think I don't know why. For some reason, I always get the sense he's underrated as well, a bit similar to Beckham. I just don't feel. I think it's perhaps because he did have some really bad injuries over the course of his career, but he should, for me, if you're talking about just like how good was somebody at their peak, I think there aren't many who've had a better peak than him, if that makes sense. Like when he was at his best, he was genuinely unplayable.
I'm going to challenge that though quickly, Jack. Can you remember this season when Wigan got off to a flyer and they had Amir Zaki up front? Now that was a man at his
You
peak.
want to talk about peak?
Amir
Those
Zaki.
first 9 games.
I don't know how on earth that came into my head then, but I just remember him being on fire for like 9 games, and you were just like, "Who the fuck's this guy? Like, why is he scoring so many goals?" And that's it. Done, gone.
That's a brilliant insight into your brain for the listeners, that, Dobby.
I think you've just given us another episode idea there, Dobby, which is like players who perhaps wouldn't get considered all-time, historically brilliant footballers, but when they were at their peak, how good were they? And Amir Zaki could definitely be a contender for that. I think I've thrown Ronaldo's name in because I really would be. I'd regret it if I didn't. Right, so it's almost becoming. I want to say it's becoming a regular feature in the show, almost. I feel like we need to get the Question of Sport theme tune played at this point. But following on from our Sporkle quiz episode last week, Quizmaster General Lewis Trice has provided us with another quiz for this week. Trice, do you want to explain what we're doing?
Yeah, so basically I'll just give a bit of context. Like when I'm doing the late night feeds, I've got a lot of time on my hands, so I just end up thinking what would be quite good for the podcast, and I've come up with an idea for this: Icons closest wins. Now what you're going to get is you're going to get 5 questions where the answer's a number. You then have to add up your numbers and give me a final figure, and the person at the end wins.
Do we need a calculator then?
You will need a calculator, but I know you're good at maths, Dobby, but it's just easy.
Oh, I've got one. I'm
It
at
should
my
be
work
like
desk.
darts. You should have to do it from mental arithmetic.
I've got my calculator.
Does that make sense?
No, I think that makes sense. Trish, yeah, go on. Let's.
So the answers are numbers,
Yes.
and we just
Based
add up,
on legends, we've sort of discussed it, a few of
and
them already.
then closest wins at the end.
Yeah, so you will write down 5 numbers, and then
Okay.
you give me an end number.
And are we just adding them up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
question 1.
Let's do it.
We spoke about him at Juve a minute ago, but Zinedine Zidane's shirt number at Juventus.
Oh shit!
I get the feeling this was quite high.
Question 2, are you ready?
Yeah, go.
In his 470 apps for Man United, how many goals did George Best score?
Oh bloody hell!
See, I'm going to be struggling on this one because, I mean, he was obviously a scorer, but was he like a really prolific goal scorer? I mean, obviously he was quite prolific, but if that makes sense. I'm not sure it does make sense, but
Yeah, it's not the easiest ones, but I'm
that's
sure.
difficult. That tries. I'm going to say his ratio is better than. Oh, is it 1-2? Oh, I don't know.
Hopefully, common sense might prevail, and that you get the closest at the end. But this one's a toughie. I'll be honest. It's one of the harder quizzes I've produced in comparison to David Brent
First
quotes.
two answers were very tough.
Not many are going to be doing this on Sport Call, let me tell you.
No,
Trust.
no, it's all part of the fun. Dobby sort of flirted with him there. One of my favourite players of all time, Paolo Maldini. How many games has he played for AC Milan in all competitions?
God.
He's played a few.
For context, I'll give you some context
played
here. I'll give you some context. He made his debut at 16 in 1984, and he retired in 2009.
Yeah, because he played against bloody Maradona, didn't he?
What year did he start?
1984 he started and retired in 2009. That's ridiculous.
25
Paolo.
years. That's like, I mean, that's 15 to 40. That's if you started
That's
at 15, you'd retire at 40. Yeah, one of the greats. Oh, he's got. I mean, how many games? How many seasons? I can't even estimate with Paolo's games. That's so hard.
Oh, keep changing.
It's going to be an embarrassing answer this for me. Go on, Trash. Oh, wait, is that it? Or have we got
Yeah.
one more?
Oh, sorry, we've got 2 more. Diego Maradona's number of clubs. Different
God.
clubs. He's had a stint at more than one, so different clubs.
Okay, that's probably the one I'm most confident on, which doesn't say a lot for my other answers.
Yeah. I feel like I'm closer with my guess on that one than my other answers.
Final question. Regular feature on this show. Goals record's debatable. How many goals has Pelé scored for Brazil in his 92 games?
About 500.
I was going to say, I wonder at what point this joker would be getting a mention.
Do we add them up now, Trice?
Yeah, add them up and give us your...
92 games, that's not actually like... I was expecting him to say he played more games.
Well, the Fire Brigade don't have international status, do they?
Right, I've got a total for you.
Same. Oh, hang on, I feel like I've added that up wrong. Let me go again.
For housekeeping, do you want to put it in the WhatsApp group, or do you trust each other to say it?
I can show you it on my screen if you want.
Yeah, I'll show you mine because my phone's dead, so tell me when to reveal.
Go on, show us your numbers. Dobby, read that out. What is it?
I'll read mine out.
1282. Jack, what are you?
I'm 1255. So we're not far away, are we?
Ooh.
We could both be miles off, but at least we're close with each other. It's not really that embarrassing now, either way.
Yeah.
Dobby, what was yours?
1282.
And yours was...
Sorry, my choice was 1255. 1255.
Jack's the winner. Just very close. Both of you are very good answers.
Oh, is it in
there.
between us? It can't be in between.
No.
Is the answer in between us? Or no?
It's less than Jack's number.
Oh.
What was it?
1,185.
Oh.
Alright, not bad.
What did you say for the Maldini games, Dobby? Because I was like 900. I guessed like 900 for that.
I went 850.
Oh, I was on 9.
Do what? Jack, 902 apps for AC Milan.
Well,
we'll go through the answers. We'll go through the answers just for context.
Yeah.
Zidane's shirt number at Juve. What did you put?
22, I thought.
Yeah, I put 22.
21.
Oh.
Insight into George Best's record in all comps for Man United. 470 apps.
I went
179 goals.
Yeah, I went
179.
I went
179
189
goals.
I went 320, so that's where I've cocked up then. I've really overdone that.
Yeah, I originally went like 200 and something. Then I thought, I bet he's not 1 in 2. I bet he's lower than 1 in 2. So that's what.
I was
made me
thinking
do
one
it.
every half.
Diego Maradona's number of clubs. He's actually played for 6 different clubs.
Yeah,
2 spells
got
at
that.
Boca Juniors.
I got that.
I got
6.
that. Yeah, I got 6.
Pele, I'm interested on your thoughts here. 92 apps, how many goals for Brazil?
I just went 80, and I wasn't
8.
sure if that was right, but I just sort of thought he's bound to be high,
Yeah,
close,
I
not
went-
far.
I went 84.
77. Neymar's actually closing in on that, I think.
Yeah, I think
Neymar's on
I said that
70, I think,
recently.
now.
Yeah.
Is he keeping his own tally as well?
Probably.
He can't add games against the state police.
There you have it.
Is
that
it-
was closest wins. Thank you for playing.
I enjoyed that. You know what? I'm happy with my score there because that was respectable.
No, that was
900 games for one club is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, how did I not get bored?
Like I said, like you starting at 16, and then if you play
41,
25
I
years,
think.
you go into 40. Yeah, he must have
Yeah.
done like 17 to 41 or something. Oh, it's not a bad career though if you can have it, and then you just get to retire and be a club ambassador for the rest of your
Is that what
days.
he is now? I was going to ask, what is he now? What's his status now?
He's
Yeah, they
definitely
retired
involved with
his
Spurs
shirt
at Milan,
number.
isn't
His son can wear number 3 though, I think, if he ever gets
Oh,
into the
really?
first team.
That's
he?
pretty
yeah,
cool.
I feel like I've
Is
seen
his son
that
in the
before.
youth squad?
I think so. I think both of them are, yeah.
That'd be a good partnership, wouldn't it?
Do you two ever get worried? Well, not worried, but just do you ever think, like, in 50 years or 100 years, so many squad numbers might have been retired that squads just look really lopsided? Like, the numbers all look a bit fucked up. Like imagine, like, 7, 9 and 10's all been retired.
That's a good point,
Like Man
actually.
City or something. And they've got to... Anyway.
Well, one day, someone's going to have to make the decision to unretire a number, and someone's going to have to be the first
Yeah.
person to do that.
Yeah.
Like Birmingham City retiring Jude Bellingham shirt number. Like in 30 years' time, an owner's got to be sat there and be like, right, we're retiring that. And I don't know what reaction they'll get, but someone will have to do that.
I 100% believe that the person to retire Jude Bellingham's shirt number will be Jude Bellingham when he makes his inevitable return to Birmingham City on a free transfer in his mid-30s.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that was the most odd shirt retiring ever, wasn't it?
That was odd, yeah. That was very strange.
Well, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but Christ, I've never. I just can't believe it.
That's another potential. We've got so many potential episode ideas from tonight. If nothing else, that we've achieved a lot.
Yeah. Got a few in the dictaphone. Idea for a podcast: retired shirt numbers.
Transfers that nearly happened. Yeah, but I mean, we'll call time for tonight anyway on the icons topic.
Yeah. Cheers for the quiz try.
So that was great,
That
Trice,
was
yeah.
good.
Got to live up to the title, haven't I, of director of the quiz.
Yeah.
Once again, you've proven your materials for like hosting your own quiz site. Like you've
Maybe I
definitely
need
got it in.
another hobby. Maybe I'm just sad.
You'll have Sue Barker's job in no time, Trice. Don't worry.
Yeah, we need to.
I'm
We
nowhere
definitely.
near as professional.
I definitely need to organise playing the Question of Sport theme tune for the next quiz. We'll have to ask them if we're all right to do that. But anyway, for tonight, we'll call time on the bar. Thanks for joining me, boys.
Yeah.
And we'll see each other on the next podcast.
Yeah. Cheers, gents. Take care.
Cheers.
Speak soon, lads. Cheers.